I always thought the forest behind our house was just a forest, until my 6-year-old son told me there was a man in the woods who wanted to take his place. My name is Rachel. I'm a single mother, and I live with my son, Eli, in a small rural town in Oregon. Our house sits quietly at the edge of an old forest, the kind of place where trees are so dense, the sun has to fight its way in. We moved here a year ago running from something I'd rather forget. Or rather, someone. Eli is a gentle boy, curious, observant, and unusually quiet for his age. He doesn't talk much, but when he does, it's thoughtful to thoughtful. He never really adjusted to the move. He doesn't have friends in school, and most days, he just plays by himself in the backyard, near the forest line. I didn't think much of it at first. The way he'd sit under the old guava tree, whispering, giggling sometimes. Kids have imaginary friends, right? That's what I kept telling myself, until he said the name, Jalu. It was a chilly October evening when I heard him for the first time. Jalu says the forest used to be his home, Eli murmured during dinner. His eyes focused on the dark window beside us. I looked up from my plate. Who's Jalu? I asked casually, forcing a smile. He didn't answer immediately. He just shrugged and picked at his peas. Then, without looking at me, he said something that made my skin crawl. He said, "You took his place." I blinked. "What do you mean?" Eli looked at me then, his voice distant. "You live in his house now, with me. He doesn't like that." That night, I stood by his door long after he fell asleep, listening to the sound of wind rustling the leaves outside, or what I thought was the wind. The following days brought more of Jalu. Eli talked about him like a friend. Sometimes he would draw him, a tall, thin figure with hollow eyes and arms that reached the ground. He drew him always in black, always, beneath the same tree, the one at the edge of our backyard. "Where did you learn that name?" I asked him one morning while he colored the same unsettling figure in his notebook. He paused, crayon midair. He told me himself. He said it's rude not to remember names. That night, I searched the name Jalu online. Nothing, no local legends, no folklore, no missing person reports. But somehow, the name felt familiar, like something from a dream I forgot, but never really left. One evening, I was folding laundry when I heard Eli laughing outside. It was past sunset. When I stepped onto the porch, he was standing by the tree facing the forest, not moving, just standing. "Eli," I called out. He didn't respond. As I approached him, I noticed something strange. The temperature dropped, like walking into a refrigerator. My breath came out in small puffs. I touched his shoulder, and he flinched. "Don't," he whispered. "You'll scare him." "Scare who?" He turned to me slowly. "Jalu. He doesn't like grown-ups." Then he pointed into the woods. I followed his finger, expecting to see nothing. But in the growing shadows, between the trees, there was a figure, still, watching, not moving. A shiver ran through my entire body. When I blinked, it was gone. The next day, I couldn't stop replaying the moment in my head. Eli pointing, that silhouette in the trees. Had I imagined it? A trick of the light? Maybe a tall tree swaying just right? No, something had been there. I knew it. Ellie's behavior shifted subtly in the days that followed. He wasn't scared. That's what disturbed me most. He seemed comfortable. With the presence, too comfortable. He began talking to Jalu more openly. Even when I was in the room, I would hear him whisper in low tones at night, always near the window. Sometimes I would catch words I didn't recognize, odd, rhythmic sounds like some kind of chant or language. He'd stop when I walked in, always with a calm, sleepy smile. One night, I asked him directly, "Eli, is Jalu a real person?" He shrugged. "Not like us. He used to be. But he's different now. He's older than the trees." I felt a chill run down my spine. "Why do you talk to him?" "He listens," Eli said, eyes wide. "He knows things. He said he remembers me from before." "Before what?" Eli looked confused for a moment. "Before I was yours. I started keeping the windows locked and the doors bolted at night. I drew the curtains closed, but I still felt watched. The air inside the house turned heavier, especially near the back windows facing the forest. One morning, I found muddy footprints in the hallway. bare footprints. Ellie's shoes were dry. Mine too. I followed the trail to the back door. It was still locked. When I asked Eli, he simply said, "Jalu comes in when he wants. Locks don't stop him." That night, I dreamt of the guava tree. In my dream, it was dying, its bark peeled away in strips, its fruit blackened and rotting. Something stood beneath it. Something tall, with arms too long and a face I couldn't quite see, except for two empty holes where the eyes should be. I woke up to the sound of tapping on the window. 3 slow, deliberate taps. I forced myself to look. Nothing was there. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. I began recording things. At night, I left my phone on the windowsill near Ellie's room with the camera pointed toward the tree. I needed to prove to myself that something was happening, that I wasn't spiraling into some paranoid fantasy. The first night, the footage showed nothing. The second night, I heard faint whispers on the audio dot. By the third night, something was visible. At exactly 3:12 a.m., the tree shook, not from wind, but violently, like something had slammed into it. The leaves moved without breeze, and then a shape appeared. Just for a moment, a shadow detached itself from the tree and stepped toward the house. But the strangest part, at that very moment on the video, Eli sat up in bed, eyes open but not blinking. His mouth moved as if speaking, though no sound came out. Then, he smiled. I stopped watching. My hands were shaking too much. The next morning, Eli asked me something that shattered me completely. "Mom, would you still love me if I had someone else's soul?" I dropped my coffee mug. It shattered across the tile, a sharp crack echoing through the kitchen. Eli didn't even flinch. He just looked at me, calm, curious. "Why would you say something like that?" I whispered. He smiled gently. "Jalu said sometimes souls get tired." He said I wasn't the first me. That evening, I dug around the base of the guava tree. I don't know what I expected. Bones, an old toy. But I found something. A small, hand-carved wooden figure buried beneath the roots. Its face was twisted, burned black, and it had markings etched into its surface, symbols I couldn't read. I wrapped it in a towel and took it inside. I shouldn't have, because that night, everything changed. When I entered Ellie's room, he wasn't in bed. The window was wide open, the curtains fluttering in the cold air. Panic shot through me. I screamed his name. From the forest, I heard two voices. Both were Ellie's, one crying, the other laughing. I froze. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. I ran barefoot into the night, screaming Ellie's name. The cold bit into my skin, and branches clawed at my arms as I pushed through. The trees, the laughter grew louder, high-pitched, echoing, bouncing off the trunks like mocking bells. "Eli." I cried again, breathless. Then, from somewhere deep ahead, I heard him, "Mommy, help me." It was Eli. That was his real voice, frightened, desperate. I followed it, my feet pounding against roots and moss, stumbling, slipping. The darkness felt thicker here, unnatural. The moon was bright, yet barely any light touched the forest floor. And then I saw him, standing under the guava tree, the same one, though it should have been back near the house. It looked wrong here, twisted, its fruit blackened and dripping, with something thick like tar. Eli was at its base, hugging his knees, shivering. I rushed to him, knelt down, touched his face. "I'm here. I've got you. Let's go." He looked up slowly, his eyes. They weren't his. They were black, entirely, no whites, no pupils, just bottomless, ink-filled orbs. "Too late," he whispered. But the voice that came out wasn't Ellie's. It was lower, ancient, mocking. I stumbled back, horrified. Behind him, the figure began to form, peeling out from the tree itself, like it had always been part of it. Arms stretched unnaturally long. Bones cracked as they twisted into limbs. And that face, there was no mouth, just a jagged, vertical split where a mouth should be, opening sideways like a wound. "You took what was mine," it hissed, though its mouth never moved. I froze, paralyzed by the presence. My mind screamed to run, but my legs betrayed me. Then Eli. The real Eli ran from the shadows behind me, straight into my arms. He was crying, trembling. "There's another me, Mommy. He said he wants to stay, and I have to go." The thing roared, not a sound, but a pressure like something inside my chest was being pulled out. I held Eli tight and ran. Branches snapped. The earth trembled beneath my feet. I didn't look back. I didn't want to know what I'd see. We made it home. I slammed the door shut and locked it. Every bolt and chain, Eli collapsed in my arms, sobbing. I looked at him, truly looked at him. His eyes brown. Human. He was mine. But for how long? In the following days, I didn't let Eli out of my sight. We slept in the same room. I quit work. I even called a priest, though he said he didn't do that kind of thing anymore. I was alone. We both were, and the forest was always whispering. Eli began forgetting things. His birthday, his favorite color, my name. Some nights he'd speak in his sleep, whispering that name over and over. Jalu, Jalu, Jalu. One morning, I found the wooden figure I'd buried in the trash can in the kitchen, its eyes now open. It was smiling. I never brought it into the house. I started documenting everything, the symbols, the dreams, the sounds. I found something in an old Indonesian folktale archived online, barely translated. Jalu was a name that appeared in a fragment of Javanese myth, referencing a spirit that mimics lost children to steal their places in the world of the living. It waits beneath trees, whispering until it is remembered, until it is invited. The more you speak to it, the more it takes. And once you say its name, it knows you. That night, Eli stood in the hallway at 3 a.m., just outside my bedroom. His voice was strange, soft, detached. Mom, I think I'm forgetting who I am. I held his face. You're Eli. You're my son. You're real. But deep inside, I could feel it. Something was pulling him away, something that wanted in. And I was running out of time. Eli changed. Little things. At first, he no longer called me mommy, just mom. He stopped eating his favorite cereal. He asked for raw eggs, instead said he liked the texture. He hated the cartoons he used to laugh at. And once, he just stared at the screen when I played them, like he didn't understand the concept of a joke. He stopped blinking when he talked. And then, he stopped sleeping. One night, I found him sitting on the edge of the bathtub, whispering to his reflection in the dark bathroom mirror. I watched from the hallway, terrified to step in. His voice was layered like two people speaking at once. I know she's watching. No, she won't stop me. Yes, soon. I turned on the light. Eli looked at me, expressionless. He whispered. He said you used to know him, too. He remembers your voice from the tree. My stomach dropped. I never told Eli. Never told anyone, not even my husband, that when I was 8 years old, I got lost in a forest behind my grandmother's house in Kediri, East Java. For hours, I followed a boy with no face. I don't remember how I got out. I blocked it for years. Until now. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat beside Ellie's bed, watching him. At 3:12 a.m., he opened his eyes, but he didn't move. His body was stiff, eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling. Then, his lips parted. He whispered, "It's done." The next morning, he was different again. To polite, to quiet. He sat perfectly still at breakfast. He looked me in the eye and said, "Thank you for everything, but I think I'll go now." "Go where?" I asked, heart pounding. "To the forest. It's time." He said, "I can stay now." He gave me the skin. My spoon dropped. "The what?" Eli smiled, and it wasn't his smile. It was stretched too wide. That evening, I locked the doors, took Eli into the car, and drove hours to the city. To a child psychiatrist, to anyone who could tell me what was happening. The therapist listened patiently. Then, she pulled me aside and said something I can't forget. "Ma'am, the boy you brought in, he says his name is Jalu, and he insists you're not his mother." I burst into tears, screamed, begged them to understand. But when I rushed back into the room, the child sitting there wasn't my son. He looked like Eli. He spoke like Eli. But when I looked into his eyes, I saw nothing. No fear, no confusion. Just emptiness. I brought him home anyway. What else could I do? But I knew my real son was still out there, somewhere, trapped, buried, and I had brought the wrong one back with me. I started digging into ancient folklore, Southeast Asian ritual texts, anything. I found a lead. In forgotten animist practices, there is mention of Ropenangu, a type of spirit sentinel that can replace living beings if invited. Jalu wasn't just a ghost. He was a parasite, an echo from a long-dead forest deity, exiled from the human world, sustained only by remembrance and fear. He had worn many faces, many children, and now my sons. One night, I made a decision. I waited until Eli was asleep, then carried him into the backyard, to the base of the guava tree. I held the wooden idol in one hand, a lighter in the other. I whispered into the wind, just like he used to. Jalu, if you're listening, take back what you brought. Give me my son. The ground shook. The tree wept. The boy in my arms woke up screaming, not in pain, but in rage. His voice dropped into something ancient, guttural. You can't undo the binding. I am Eli now. His scream tore through the night like thunder. The sky above the tree split open, clouds swirled unnaturally, and the wind howled in reverse. Eli thrashed in my arms, but I held him tighter, digging my nails into his back. He was cold, now ice cold, like something had stopped circulating inside him. You're not real. I shouted over the roar. You're just a memory, a lie-wearing skin. The guava tree began to bleed. Its black fruit oozed something thick and metallic. The roots writhed like snakes. Then, I did what I never thought I could. I tossed the wooden figure into the fire I had built, doused it in salt water, and screamed the name, Jalu. And for a moment everything stopped, even the wind. Time itself froze. He looked at me with those bottomless eyes, that face stretching, twitching. You should not have remembered me, he said. Then he collapsed, limbs limp, face blank. And he said, in Ellie's true voice, Mom, I cradled him, crying, my entire body shaking. His eyes were back brown. Real, Eli? I whispered. He nodded slowly, wrapping his arms around me. He let me go. You brought me back. I didn't question it. I didn't care how. I just held him. That night, we slept together on the floor beside the ashes of the ritual fire. When morning came, the tree was gone, not burnt, gone, as if it had never existed. And for a while, things were better. No more whispers, no more mirrors, no more bleeding fruit. But then weeks later, I took Eli for a checkup, just routine. The nurse smiled and asked him to confirm his full name. He paused, blinked, and then said softly, my name is Jalu. I laughed, a nervous, awkward laugh. Sweetie, don't be silly, I said. But the nurse didn't laugh. She looked up at me with blank eyes and said, of course it is. It always has been. I froze, my skin turned cold. I looked around the office. The walls were different. The paintings were not the same. I looked down at my hands, and suddenly, I didn't remember my own last name. I rushed Eli Jalu outside, heart racing. The street signs were in a language I didn't recognize. Cars drove on the wrong side of the road. The people stared too long. Their faces lingered. The world had changed. It's been 3 months since the forest. My son smiles. He hugs me. He laughs again. But sometimes, when I look in the mirror, I see someone else standing behind me. A woman who looks like me but older, thinner, eyes hollowed out. And she whispers, you shouldn't have called his name now. I wonder, did I bring my son back, or did he bring me into his world? Either way, I don't think I ever left the forest, and I don't think I ever will. The end.